Hi, it's John, the game trainer. I've got the map layout on here. It's been printed very beautifully on some vinyl. And this is the island of Shikuko. So I'm just going to adjust the camera. The island of Shikuko in Japan. And this is a very much a rehash of 1830s rules with a few with maybe a slightly simpler rule set. So it's great fun. It's fantastic for beginners. This is how me and my friends started playing 18xx only in January. And so really this is the first copy I ever saw of an 18xx game, and it's kind of what helped me start off the love that I have for this genre. So the bank is $7,000, which I've laid out here. There are some chips in the corners. They're just to hold the map down because it's kept as a roll, so it sometimes kind of bends a bit in the corners, but they're not included in the bank. What I'm going to do is set up the rest of the area and then maybe start explaining some of the rules. So one of the main reasons why 1889 is a fantastic beginner game is it comes with a built-in beginner variant. Okay, and so there are some tiles. So as you can see, I've laid tiles along the outside. You can't see them all, unfortunately, but just the camera angle. And there are some beginner tiles. Now, I'm not playing the beginner game today because I can explain those rules. But these are taken out if you're not playing the beginner game, or otherwise they're left in, and they've got beginner game written on them. Okay. The other element with the beginner game is in the manual. It depicts a certain number of private companies, which are these companies here, that are removed at lower player counts, and they're different depending on whether you're playing the beginner game, or the advanced variant. I think the designer of this redraw has written on some of the cards which players, but I don't think this relates to the beginner game. Okay. So the beginner game has fewer of these private companies, and it ignores the text on the private company. So it's just you pay this amount to get it on the auction, or at least I should say minimum this amount, and this amount here is how much revenue you get for every operating round that you own the company. You can sell them in two companies in the beginner game, and they will also then earn that company that revenue until they're closed. The stock, the other, I'm not going to try and assume that you've watched the 1846 video, so I will try and keep things as if you would not know anything about 18xx as much as possible. A lot of the same ideas occur in a lot of the same, or a lot of the games. The main premise of 18xx and how you win is at the end of the game is your cash and your stock holdings that earn you value. Any money in companies you might own gain you no value. Okay, so if you manage to put all your money into a company but then can't get it out by the end of the game, it's not yours. Okay. The two major differences between this game and 1846, because obviously you can go and watch that video I've done. There's lots of other videos as well about 1846. This is what is called a full capitalization game. So you have to buy a certain amount of a company to float it, and then you get the entire 100%. So you need to. So usually, in a full cap game, you usually buy 50 to 60% of the company, and then you get 100% of the capital. So if you started it for, if you parred at $100, you would, and it was a 60% cap game, you would spend $600, or you collectively as players would spend $600, but the company would start with $1,000 in its kitty. Okay. Okay, so I have put a few of the tiles on the board because they are specific upgrade tiles, and I'll explain those. And then we can talk through the private companies and maybe introduce you to those, and then I will pause the video and set up for the beginning of the game. So we have 3 cities that have kind of predetermined upgrade paths. We've got Kochi, who starts as a green and can be upgraded to brown. We have Kotohira, who starts as a blank tile and can be upgraded from yellow to green to brown. And we have Takamatsu, who starts as a yellow city and then can be upgraded to a green and a brown. Okay, so they have specific tiles that must go in their spots if they are upgraded that way. Okay. And then I'll talk through the private companies, and then I'll kind of explain how the general flow of the game works. So we have, if we're playing a 4-player game, which is what I'm planning to do today, we have the Takamatsu electric track. This is, oh, sorry. Okay. And then this reserves the tile lay in Takamatsu. It costs a minimum of 20, and it gives a revenue of 5 per operating mound until the 5s come out, when all the companies will close. You have the Mitsubishi ferry here, and the Mitsubishi ferry there's 4 port locations which will have this symbol nearby, and this is basically an upgraded little town, and it gives you $30 revenue. When you hit it, it costs a minimum of 30, and it gives you a revenue of 5. Okay. And then we have the Ehime Railroad. Okay. And so then when this company is sold, when this is sold to a corporation, you can upgrade Uzu from yellow, which is how it starts, to green, in addition to your tile lay of that company's turn, and this will be a minimum of 4 and $10 revenue. Okay. Then we have the Sumitomo Beshi Mine Railroad. Okay. And then this owning corporation may ignore building costs for mountains, hexes which do not contain rivers, and this does not close the company. So this can be very useful because you can see, I'll show you in a second, but there's a big mountain range right through the middle of Shikuko. And then we've got par value minimum of 50 and revenue of $15. Okay. We then have the Dogo Railway. Okay, and then so you can exchange this for 10% share of the IO Railway from the initial offering. And then we have 60 par and 15 revenue. The South IO Railway, so this is just has no special abilities. It can be bought in, but it costs you a minimum of $80 and 20 revenue per turn. And then we have the Unu Takamatsu ferry. This does not close while owned by a player, and if owned by a player when the first 5 trains purchased, it may no longer be sold to a public company, and the revenue is increased from 30 to 50. So it does cost you $150 to start, but it can be really quite a big earner in the end. Okay, and then this one and the previous one are not used in a 2-player game, and this one is then not used in a 3-player. Okay. So you can see on the map. Let me just get you a little bit closer. Okay, a little bit closer. So you can see on the map. There are some unupgradable tiles. So these are grey tiles that are printed on board, so that will never change. You've got some pre-printed tiles, and obviously they can be upgraded. You have some of these spots here, which are the starting cities for the different public companies. And then you've got symbols like this and here, which go with the Mitsubishi Ferry company, and you've got these mountain hexes all the way over here, and then specifically these river and mountain hexes, and then the river hex over here. Okay, you also have some off-board locations, which give you certain revenue depending on which phase of the game you're in, or specifically which train goes there for the with regards to the diesel. So track laying is actually free to the company. Unless there is a terrain cost here. Okay, and that's where obviously the Sumitomo Beshi Mine Railroad comes in very useful, because you can kind of break through that. But obviously that doesn't help you here. There are some costs for upgrading. So this little hex here says $80. So if you were to upgrade Kochi, you would have to pay $80 to upgrade there. And then specifically for example, the Kotohira has upgrade costs all the way up. So every time you upgrade, you have to, obviously that one doesn't, because it doesn't upgrade anymore. And so every upgrade will state whether it costs, otherwise it is free. And you can only lay 1 tile or do 1 upgrade in this game. So but it's a much smaller map. So you can see how tiny the actual number of hexes are. It's ridiculously small. The game will go until either the bank breaks, 7,000 yen bank breaks, or one of the players goes bankrupt. And being a kind of an 1830 morph, the train rush can be quite unforgiving. When trains rust in this game, they disappear, and so they can be very unforgiving. Okay. And so when trains rust in this game, they can be very unforgiving. There's no other scaling apart from starting cash, which I will pause the video and dole out, and then we can start the auction for the private companies. So we're going to move on to the private company auction. This is one of the reasons why the beginner game works great for beginners, because these special abilities don't matter. You have a set number of companies, and people are paying a certain amount to get a certain amount of revenue, so it's much easier to understand. Whereas gauging the value of some of these powers can be very tricky your first game of any 18xx. You'll notice that there's an additional board here. This is just borrowed from another one, just because this particular drawer doesn't have a payment per share tracker. And I've also borrowed some cubes for the different colours, just to help me to keep track of who's auctioning for what. In a 4-player game, everyone starts with $420, and the certificate limit is 14. Every player is only allowed to own 60% of the company. And that is all nicely printed on the board as a reminder, so you won't forget that aspect. Okay, this plays from 2 to 6 as well, which is quite an unusual spread. I can't imagine this with 6 players. I think it'll be so bloodthirsty. But anyway, let's get down to it. The way the auction works is either you can bid on the first one and you'll take it for face value, or you can pass, of course, and when you pass, you'll be able to come back in a future bid. The third thing you can do is place a bid on one of the kind of future companies, the ones further down the line, and they are actually supposed to be in order, so they go in this order. And so if I do that, I will place my little marker, and I'll have to spend $5 more than the latest bid or the face value if I'm the first. Okay, and so what will happen is you'll have several bids out, potentially out, and then as soon as somebody buys the first one, it's what is called a cascade. So every company that has a bid on it will then resolve. If there are 2 bids on a company, those players who already have bids involved will be able to bid more until one of them outbids the other. It can get obviously very dangerous, because if you overspend here, then you're going to struggle in the future stock rounds. And then any companies that are left are then gone through the same process. If at any point every player passes, what will happen is you will play a operating round, and obviously all the privates will then pay to whoever already owns them, and then the first company, the company that's furthest to the left, will then be reduced by $10 until it is either bought or it goes for free, when then it has to be bought by that player. Okay, and it just goes round, kind of round robin wise. Okay, so I just made it a bit easier on change wise, so I don't have to think about it while I'm doing it. I'm just going left to right because it doesn't really matter, because I'm just playing for myself. And so the first player will, I think there's 2 thoughts. You either kind of go for the more expensive ones, hoping that you're going to get it cheap by triggering, somebody's going to trigger a cascade potentially, and then obviously that will then get bought, and so you might get it, but obviously then you're committed to that. Otherwise, go for cheap, and then make sure there aren't these massive cascades. And so I think he likes the idea of getting in on a company early. So he's going to put this here and put his bid for 65. So 50, 65. Okay, so that's him, and I'm just going to put that there. And so yellow is player 1. And then I've got player 2. She doesn't like, she wants to have a little bit of more freedom with the mountains, so she's going to go for the mountain company, because there are a lot of mountains out there. Player 3 would like to have a bit of an early route, and so we'll pay 35 for this one, and he's white. And then player 4 will player 4 doesn't like the idea that player 1 will get this for a mere 65. So he's actually going to put out 70. And so when you're bidding against somebody, you just have to raise their bid by 5. When you're playing, because the red hasn't won this yet, there'll be a bid once everything triggers, and that'll be kind of the true bid. We then have back to player 1, who is going to. You can't. So he could raise this bid. Is his option to raise here by 10, or bid on something else. I think he will raise it by 10 to go to 75. Okay. And then the grey player likes the fact that he's getting this one, so he's actually going to trigger the cascade, and so he's going to buy this one for 20. Okay, so that's for 20, and so now things resolve. So the white will spend that money. For the Mitsubishi Ferry. The grey will get this, pay it, and he'll get the mining company. And then there'll be a potential bidding war between these two. The yellow wasn't particularly interested, so he's actually going to bow out and allow the white player to take it for 75. He did obviously overspend by $15, so that's more expensive than he was hoping for. And so the player 2 triggered that. So it is now player 3's turn to place a bid. So obviously he could buy the Eheim Railroad for 40, or he could start bidding on these two. Now these obviously are going more expensive, and so he's considering it. He's actually going to pass. I think he's happy with his Mitsubishi Ferry. The red player, player 4, currently hasn't got anything, so he's actually going to go for the he's going to go for he's going to go for the South IO Railway. So he's going to spend, he can't spend 80, he has to spend 85. So that's what that is there, 85. And then player 1 is going to just take the Eheim Railway. Because that allows him to upgrade Ozo, and he's already into the IO, so that's quite, oh, you can't see that, sorry, should pop you up a little bit. So the IO starts here and the Ozo is here, which is what upgrades it. So he's going to happily do that, take that for 40. And obviously that then cascade the red. Okay, and then the second player has got the option to buy the Unu Takamatsu ferry straight out. Now he's actually spent quite a bit of his money because he's already bought 2 privates, so he's got 350 left. So he's actually going to hang fire. Player 3 has got 385, so he's a little bit better, but he's actually going to pass as well. And then the player 4, who's only got 1 ferry, he's got $250, $265 even. He's going to pass. Player 1, I think, has got almost got the least, so 305, so nearly the least. So he's got 305, so he's actually going to also pass. So everyone's passed on the Unu Takamatsu ferry, and so this will start getting reduced by $10 per person who passes on it, but we will first have an operating round where everyone gets revenue. And so the player 1 will get $25, player 2 will get $20, player 3 will get $5, and player 4 will get $20. So it behooves the green player, sorry, not the green player, the player 3 to not let that happen again, because he just got $5 where everyone else got $20 or more. So he's going to be behind now. So that was player 1 had passed. So player 4 had passed. No, player 1 had passed, sorry, my mistake. So player 1 had passed, and then player 2 will get the option to buy, and he will buy it for 140 potentially. He's got 200, 350, 60, 370. So that's still almost half of his capital. So he's actually going to pass. So then he goes to player 3 for 130. And so he will buy it for 130 because he doesn't want the to miss out again on getting revenue for an operating run once everyone's passed. Okay, so it kind of forces his hand a little bit there, so he'll get that. Okay, so now we move into, so that was the pre-stock round, and so now we're going to be moving into the stock round.